What's up everybody, this is Scott with Team 512 and I'm back with another versus video. That's right, my C7 Corvette Grand Sport versus this 1964 C2 Stingray. It happens to be one of my dream cars, so stick around, you're not going to want to miss this one. Alright you guys, I am here at Kasser Motor Group in Westchester, Pennsylvania, a 14,000 square foot storage facility known as the Park at Whiteland. But they don't just store cars here, they also have some pretty unique ones for sale, including this 64 Stingray right here, which is an NCRS Top Flight award winning car. And if you're interested in buying this thing, there's a link down in the description. All right, you guys, I know what you're thinking. What do these two cars have in common other than their namesake Corvette? Well, consider this. Back in the early 60s, Zora Arkus Duntov wanted to build a race car, a lightweight race car, out of the C2 body and chassis. And he started building that car until some of the executives at GM found out about it and put a stop to that little project. Well, the intention was to build 125 of these lightweight race cars for homologation purposes so they could go racing, and it turns out they were able to make 5 of these cars before the program was shut down. And guess what those 5 cars were called? That's right, Grand Sports. So you guys know when I do these versus videos, I pit 2 cars against each other in 4 categories: exterior styling, interior styling, performance, and driving experience. And we're going to do just that with these 2 Corvettes right here. And we're going to start out with the C7 and talk a little bit about the exterior styling. All right guys, so here we are next to the C7 Grand Sport, and can a car get any more mean and menacing looking than this? Well, I guess if we had a ZR1 parked here, we probably could. But the Grand Sport in its own right is pretty mean looking itself. Now, when we look at the C7 Corvette, the first thing we notice up front here is just how low and wide it is, especially compared to the C2 over there, which we'll get to in a moment. With all of the aero down low here and aero down the side, it really makes this car look like it's glued to the road. And of course, this black and red motif looks pretty good if I don't say so myself. Every one of the vents in this car is functional. So we've got venting on the side here to let heat out of the engine. We've got vents down the side here to cool the brakes, and of course vents on top for the coolers, for the rear differential, and for the transmission. So we're at the back of the C7, arguably the most controversial area of this car. Gone are the round taillights. Instead, we get these squared off version here that some say look like the taillights of a Camaro. And I say, who cares? They look great on this car. There are other auto manufacturers that carry over certain designs, tail lamp designs, across their line so that they can have a consistent design language. And I think that's what GM is doing here with the C7. Anyway, with the taller spoiler here and the quad exhaust tips, makes for a really great rear end on this car. All right, so now we're here next to this absolutely gorgeous C2 Stingray. And let's talk a little bit about the exterior styling here. Now, the first thing that jumps out to me, of course, are these Hideaway headlights that we've known and love on a lot of the generations of the Corvette. Now, we know the C6 Corvette, the Hideaway headlights went away, and now the C7, of course, does not have Hideaway headlights either. But look how great they look on this C2 here. The other thing you notice on the front end is, of course, the split chrome bumper. And all the way around the car, you have this center belt line that separates the top half of the car from the bottom half of the car. And we have to point out these massive wheel arches on the front and also on the rear of the C2. And you see some of this design language 50 years later on the C7 Corvette. All right, so looking at the rear of the C2, low, wide, again, we see that split chrome bumper again, and of course, the signature Corvette round taillights that we know went away with the C7, but they look so great here on the C2. Now also notice, starting in 64, no more split window on the back of the C2 Vettes. So that was a 1 year only design, and it went away after the first year. So 64 through 67 all have a solid piece of curved glass in the rear window. So between the C7 and the C2, who wins the exterior styling? Well, I was actually dreading having to make this decision today because they are both gorgeous cars. But for me, I'm gonna have to give the C7 the win. Now, if the C2 had the same black and red motif going on, I might have changed my mind, but I'm gonna give exterior styling win to the C7. All right, so let's now have a look at the interior styling of both the C7 and the C2, and we'll start right here with the C7. Okay, if you guys are a fan of my channel, you have seen this view more than once. This is the interior of the C7 Grand Sport. This happens to be a 3LT with the jet black suede interior package, and everything here is covered in suede Alcantara microfiber, including the doors, the A-pillars, the dash. Right above the glove box, we've got really nice, I don't know if you can see that, diamond stitching here on the roof panel, and gobs of microfiber, suede, Alcantara, whatever you want to call it, everywhere. And of course, this beautiful gloss carbon dash. The C7 is a comfortable place to be, lots of visibility, and check out these gauges, you guys. The gauges in this car are phenomenal. So you have that center screen there, and right now I have the track dash on, and you can see analog gauges on either side of the dash. With the cup holders, always get a little bit of hate because you can't fit anything in there, and of course there's not much storage space here in the center console, but you do get some nice brushed aluminum on the interior here, and again, great visibility out the front and the side windows. Now let's go have a look at the C2's interior. All right, the first thing you notice in here is the large steering wheel, very thin, with these grips here. And if you've ever been in an older car or in an old muscle car, this was kind of the way steering wheels used to be made. Very thin spoke steering wheel, very clear view of all of the beautiful analog gauges. It almost feels like being in an old airplane kind of feel in here, and I think that's what they were going for with the C2 Vette. All of the dials and the gauges and even the clock look like it's straight out of an airplane. We have the center stack here coming down with the vertically mounted radio, and of course we have the twin waterfall design here that is also reminiscent in modern Corvettes as well. And I know you guys are looking right down here at this 4-speed manual. How cool is that, you guys? Also, you see the parking brake here. In later versions of the C2, I believe they actually moved the parking brake down to the center console. No storage under here, so just about the same as the C7. And we have some generous glove box space here. Actually, that's quite a bit of space in that glove box. And you'll find no cheap crackly plastic here. This is all real metal, real steel, and just beautiful interior. All right, you guys, as much as I love the modern interior of that C7 Corvette, I gotta give the interior styling win to this C2 behind me. I just love that aircraft inspired interior with all the analog gauges and dials, and of course the interior is just immaculate. It is beautiful inside that car, and one of the best things about older cars is the smell. You can't replace that smell in a newer car. It just feels like you're sitting in a piece of history. Now let's pop the hoods on both of these Vettes and talk a little bit about the performance. All right, you guys, we got the hoods popped on both of these Corvettes. It's a really cool sight, But before we talk about the performance underneath the hood, I want to talk a little bit about this color. So this is a unique color called Saddle Tan, and in 1964 they made about 22,000 C2 Vettes. Now most of those Vettes were convertibles, and about 8,000 of them were coupes like this one here. But only about 1,800 came with this Saddle Tan exterior color. And that accounts for just about 7% of all of the Corvettes that were produced in 1964. So it is the rarest of all of the colors. And it looks great, especially under this light, and it's gonna look even better out in that sun. Now, let's talk about what's under the hood. So you guys should be familiar with what's under the hood here of my Corvette Grand Sport. This is GM 6.2 liter LT1 V8, putting out 460 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. And the red line on this engine is somewhere around 6,500 RPM. It'll do the quarter mile in just over 12 seconds, and it'll hit 0 to 60 in about 3.5 seconds. So it's a pretty quick car. There's a lot of performance under that hood. Now let's take a look at the C2 and talk a little bit about the engine options back in 1964. There were 4 versions of the 327, a 250 horsepower, a 300 horsepower, a 365, and a fuel-injected 375 horsepower version of this 327. This car happens to have the 300 horsepower version of that engine. The interesting thing is the 300 horsepower version of this engine had the most torque at 360 pound-feet. Now this car did the quarter mile back in 1964 at just over 15 seconds and has a 0 to 60 time of about 8 seconds. So in terms of performance, you got to give it to the C7. Now let's get both of these cars out on the road and talk a little bit about the driving experience. All right, you guys, we are setting off in the C7 Corvette to talk about driving impressions. And if you're a fan of the channel, you've probably heard some of this stuff before, but it does bear repeating. The C7 Corvette is just an amazing vehicle. From the Stingray all the way up to the ZR1, GM just knocked this car out of the park. Very comfortable seating position, very comfortable seats, driver-focused seating position, great visibility. It's just an amazing car to drive. Plenty of power, plenty of performance. I've had the opportunity to drive a ZR1, a Z06. All of those cars are incredible vehicles. And even this car here, with the least powerful engine, the LT1, still has plenty of power to have a good time. Now my Grand Sport is equipped with the 7-speed manual transmission, and it is a delight to shift and row through the gears, especially now with this MGW shifter. And of course, the other thing we have to talk about is that exhaust. Right now I have the AWE Track Edition axle back exhaust, made it to the AWE Performance Xpipe on the Grand Sport, and it just sounds amazing. However, the exhaust in stock form also sounds very good across the entire lineup of C7 Corvettes. The inside of the cockpit here obviously favors the driver. When I'm sitting over in the passenger seat in a C7, it actually feels like I'm in a completely different car. So this car is definitely a driver-focused automobile with tons and tons of performance for the dollar. Now let's hop in that C2 and see what it's like to drive one of my dream cars. All right, you guys, we are setting off in the C2, and it's been such a long time since I've actually driven like an old muscle car, and oh man, you guys, this is awesome. I'm not even out of the driveway yet. This is amazing. I just forgot how much fun these cars are to drive. I mean, just so simple in their design. and just so mechanical in the feel. I mean, this is such a treat to be able to drive a car like this. So amazing. I love staring at these analog gauges here. They look so cool. Let's try not to stall this thing at the light. This shifter feels really cool, real mechanical. Everything just feels mechanical and analog. Of course, the steering's not as tight as what you would find in a modern car, not by any means. But man, what a cool cruiser. I shouldn't have done this. I think I need a C2 vet in my life. Oh man. The Team 512 garage is gonna have to get bigger to accommodate one of these things. I'm in third gear, putting the pedal down a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it gets moving, you know? Moving pretty good. We'll downshift here to second gear, see how that feels. I think the biggest thing I notice is the steering just, you know, feels like an old car. You know, it's not meant to go around corners at 150 miles an hour, really. I don't think. At least I'm not gonna try. I can imagine for its time, this car was pretty quick, you know? Very light car, 3,200 pounds, 300 horsepower, 360 pound-feet of torque. That's nothing to sneeze at, even by today's standards. So I guess you guys can tell by the smile on my face. Yeah, this C2 wins with a driving experience, definitely. Now let's get it safely back to the garage and wrap this video up. Oh, this is awesome. All right, guys, so there you have it, the C7 versus the C2, and they tied. So big surprise there, right? And truthfully, there wasn't really gonna be a loser in this one. They are both incredible Corvettes for, well, different reasons. They're 50 years apart, a lot more engineering and performance put into the C7, and the C2 just has some beautiful classic styling inside. Great driving experience, like you saw earlier in the video. Just an amazing honor to be able to drive one of my dream cars. And this car could be yours. It is for sale at the time of this video, and there's a link down in the description if you are interested. And if you reach out to Casser Motor Group, tell them Team 512 sent you. Now that does it for another video. Thanks for spending some time on my channel. There are a ton of great automotive YouTube channels out there, so anytime you spend with me is greatly appreciated. If you have any questions about anything you saw in this video or any of my other videos, you can always email me at team512garage@gmail.com. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss an episode. Smash the like button and leave me some comments. You guys know I love interacting with people who love cars and Corvettes just as much as I do. Till next time, see ya.